shout out VESA for actually making monitor specs easier to understand. I think there's still a lot more work for them to do here, but having VESA Display HDR certification has made it so much easier, not just to test a monitor, because we have the equipment to test the peak brightness of a display, for example. So we could tell you guys, hey, the HDR experience of this is not going to be great because here's the total possible contrast ratio, and here's why that's a problem. It really doesn't get dark enough. It really doesn't get bright enough. So the HDR metadata, yeah, sure, it can be interpreted by the display. It's not gonna break the chain of correctly interpreting the metadata that accompanies your video file, but it's not really the dynamic range is not really that high. Right? But VESA makes it simple by having these, and actually I was initially opposed to them having even VESA HDR 400 and 600 in particular. Those two it's internally we call them HDR-n't because they're not. And I was opposed to that because what I felt like was that it was an easy way for manufacturers to market their display as HDR when it really wasn't capable of it. But I've kind of come around on it because the sort of unintended ironic consequence of them creating that HDR 400 and HDR 600 branding is that folks like us can quickly and easily look at a monitor and go, hey, you got the wrong certification. You suck. And it's an easy thing for people to understand. Like if I tell you guys, if you see something that is HDR 400 certified, it is undeniably, unmistakably a bad HDR experience. By all means, still consider the product, just not if you're expecting to game or watch movies in HDR and have it really pop. As for HDR 600, well, you know what? That actually covers a pretty broad range because I don't believe there's anything between 600 and 1000. So some VESA Display HDR 600 certified monitors can actually be pretty decent, but at the bottom end, they're not that great. And then VESA Display HDR 1000, we know that those are going to be pretty strong. And then there's one that's above that that's like, yes, very, very HDR. So, just shout out because monitor manufacturers are notorious for publishing utterly meaningless specification sheets. I mean, do you remember back in the day, right? Mid 2000s, going back to when I was product managing at NCIX, mid to late 2000s, you'd see monitors, okay, that had advertised pixel response times of, 5 milliseconds or like single digit milliseconds, right? And you could look at them and almost watch the seconds tick by on your clock while a pixel switches from white to black and back again. Like, it was ridiculous. It was just clearly not right.
Yeah.
Or they would achieve that under very specific conditions that produced horrible ghosting artifacts, motion blur, artifacts when you are, overdrive, overdrive artifacts where you would have, because the pixels are slow, not only would you have a trail behind the object, but you would actually have a ghost out in front of the object as it tries to drive those pixels ahead of time. It's like, nobody would play like that. It looks horrendous, right?
Refresh rate on TVs was always a frustrating thing too.
Yeah, remember 960 hertz refresh rates on TVs that could only do 60?
Yeah. Stop it. Literally just worse. But companies seem happy about this as well.
Oh, we haven't even said what it is yet.
Oh.
So in VESA's next move, they've created Clear MR, a certification that will replace response time grading. So just a little bit of background. Response time would be the time that it takes for a pixel to change from one state to another. There's different response times. Some of them require them to go to and then back, and some of them are gray to gray or black to white. Like, there are different states. There are different, some more and some less challenging ways to measure it. But this Clear MR certification is hopefully going to put that particular bit of marketing nonsense to rest. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Oh, I was actually just looking up what Blurbusters thinks about this, but I didn't find it yet. But anyways,
I can walk through it if you want.
The Yeah, go for it. I'll keep looking it up.
All right, so basically it's a compliance test specification that applies to both LCD and emissive display products. So that would be OLED would be the most common one of those. And CMR is the clear motion ratio. This is intended to be a clear numerical value based on the ratio of clear pixels to blurry pixels. Wow, that's actually, oh wow, that's a really interesting way of doing it. Sorry, I'm just looking at this now. They say that motion picture response time and gray to gray metrics fail to reflect the true nature of blur because a solely time-based metric can't account for image enhancement and blur mitigation techniques like overshoot and undershoot. The ClearMR standard and logo program limits the use of these enhancement techniques during testing, which is good because a lot of the time you can tune something like overdrive to achieve a really good measurement in a synthetic test, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually a good experience for the viewer. There are grading/rating tiers based on the ratio of clear to blurry pixels as a percentage. Oh, okay. So ClearMR 7000 would be 65 to 75 times more clear pixels than blurry pixels, for example. So each tier provides a visually distinguishable change in clarity. So the bigger the number, the more better. And the range is from ClearMR 3000 to ClearMR 9000. I guess we can't be over 9000. As Luke was saying before, Samsung Display and LG Electronics seem pleased with this change. Here's a statement from Samsung. We applaud VESA's global standardization of the clear motion ratio metric in ClearMR, a specification for blur-free viewing that we fully support and to which we have already certified our newest OLED display. I love that they're focused on OLED. Yeah, it's how funny that the OLED manufacturers are the ones that are like, yay!
Yeah.
Now everyone can know how much better we are. And then LG said they will continue to collaborate with VESA to ensure that their monitors not only meet the high standards demanded by VESA's performance tests, but are also well equipped to satisfy the expectations and diverse needs of today's consumers.
So it sounds like Hardware Unboxed, which they do a lot of really fantastic monitor reviews.
They really do.
And Blurbusters are a little uncertain about this whole thing. There's some funky stuff. There's a Twitter thread that I found with both of them discussing it actually, which is very interesting. You can throw my screen up.
Every once in a while, something good happens on Twitter.
Yeah, it's rare, but it does happen. Hardware Unboxed is talking about how VESA's new ClearMR display certification is ranking 138 Hz OLED panels and 165 Hz LCD panels in the same clarity tier. Apparently it was deemed unfair that one has like some tech behind it. The Hardware Unboxed said, VESA, this is an interesting little VESA, let's test clarity and blur. Also VESA, but let's disable all the blur reduction and clarity improving features. So that's a little weird because I don't personally like
tough.
that, because why would you turn those features off if you were a consumer?
I think that it's okay. Ugh.
But then
Yeah,
companies can also potentially cheat.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
Yeah, because if it's a feature that harms the viewing experience in some other way, like let's say hypothetically it reduced the overall color depth.
Sure.
Or something like
Whatever,
that.
Yeah.
Then we would not recommend that you use it, right? Or if it turned off some kind of oh man. I mean, yeah, I'd say affecting color would be one of the biggest concerns that I would have.
Brightness.
Yeah, brightness would be another big one. Like if you had a feature like backlight strobing that was designed to enhance the clarity of the image, but like you said, came at a significant brightness cost, then I would say that almost you need to test that display under both conditions.
Yeah.
And it's
With features,
sort of,
without features.
yeah,
whatever.
native. Well, it's kind of like, native versus dynamic contrast ratios. You'd almost have to have both numbers reported. With that said, I mean, for my part, I would rather just buy the superior panel in the first place without, some kind of backlight strobing technology if I don't need it. But then if you do develop a workaround that works really well, well, then that sucks. And that's pretty unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have the right answer here.
I'm going to, just on a personal level, I'm going to keep my eye on Hardware Unboxed and Blurbusters and see what they think moving forward. But But yeah, interesting. Interesting. Anytime specific companies in a space are extremely happy about a new standard coming out, or a new certification coming out, sorry, it can be cool or not cool, and it's a little tough to tell unless you're really on the ground floor.
It's probably better than nothing, which is what we've had up until now. But that doesn't mean there won't be room for improvement. And VESA has made changes to their certifications in the past. So I hope they'll take all the feedback that they get
100%.
and continue to improve this. In the meantime, here's how they're testing. So they're using a digital high-speed camera, which takes pictures of a test pattern moving across the screen as it changes from one frame to the next. A colorimeter will verify pattern luminance, and products will be tested at ambient room temperature, native resolution, maximum refresh rate. So here's something that gets kind of complicated. Handling variable refresh rate motion can be very challenging, and that's something clearly this test will not address. Default power-up configuration and all after warming up. There will be no backlight strobing, and limits will be placed on overshoot and undershoot. Okay, then the rest is this. So my initial take, better than nothing, but clearly not a replacement for independent reviews.
Some flaws, yeah. But that's, I mean, we've always pushed that forward, right? More stuff, more better.
Well,
more info, more better.
The thing is, that's why we've never really boiled products down to a score. You know, that's something that I've been opposed to. I mean, I think pretty much since we started, right?
I know there was at least one time. Because I
Did
remember
I give
I
a
was
score to
really
something?
surprised. I think it was like a Razer laptop, and it was like when we were still at the NCX studio or something. It was forever ago.
I think I gave something an Editor's Choice Award or something like that. But I don't do awards.
Yeah, not a point score.
Yeah, I don't do awards and I don't do scores.
Yeah.
Because the reality of it is, if you really want to know about the product, you need to know the pros and the cons. It is always more nuanced than just 8 out of 10. 6 out of 10. 6 what? What are they? Why do I want 10 of them? You know what I mean?